Welcome to the Casual Birder podcast. I'm Susie Buttress. As a casual birder, I take pleasure in watching the wild birds around me, wherever I am. In my show, I share the joy of birding. I tell you about the birds I've seen, speak with experts and enthusiasts, go on bird outings, and I share stories from birders around the world. My guest this episode is Faraaz Abdool. Faraaz is a published and talented wildlife photographer, writer, and international tour guide. He's passionate about protecting the environment. His book, Casual Birding in Trinidad and Tobago, showcases the beauty of the birds through his photography and deepens our knowledge of their behaviour and habitats through anecdotes of encounters with them. I've known Faraaz for many years and have long admired his beautiful bird photographs that he posts on Instagram. His thoughtful commentary that accompanies them encourages us to look with our hearts as well as our eyes. We've spoken many times online, but I was thrilled to actually meet him in person at Global Bird Fair in 2024. This episode was recorded there, and unfortunately there is some background chatter and noise, but I was so excited to be speaking with Faraaz that I hope you'll forgive me for not being more careful with the recording location. Faraaz, I cannot believe that I'm sitting here speaking to you in person here at Global Bird Fair.
Well, thank you for having me, and it's wonderful to meet you as well. It's one of these things where you meet someone over the internet, and then for years they're just someone on the internet, and then there we go. I turn around and there you were.
And you recognise me, and I recognise you.
Yeah. And we had a great big hug.
We did.
Yeah.
And, you know, we've spoken by Zoom before. I remember you very kindly answered a call that I just had a query about something. And all of a sudden, we were on Zoom, I think it was, or FaceTime or something.
Something, yeah.
Chatting for over an hour. You with your birds in the background calling through the window. Mm-hmm. But I just thought, gosh, what a nice person. He actually took time out of his day to chat to me about this question that I had. And you know, I think that was the connection. That's where we started.
Yeah.
The point of today is really just to catch up, see what you've been up to and what you have planned. But first of all, for those people who may not have heard your earlier episodes, tell me what birds mean to you.
I would say always interested in birds. As a child, I would always love dinosaurs. Right, and now it kind of all makes sense that, you know, well, yeah, birds are dinosaurs had feathers, they never really became extinct, they just became birds. So I am very much, you know, the same little boy that I always was, and just trying to make, you know, a life with birds and animals and nature as the center. It's really that for me, you know, just being true to who I am, to who I always was. Some of my earliest memories involve birds, and for me, birds and animals in general, it's a purity that is very rarely found in the human world. That's the one thing for me that I enjoy most about them.
Whereabouts are you from?
Trinidad and Tobago in the Caribbean.
And that's where you still live? I
do still live there, yeah. I was born on Trinidad and lived there for most of my life. Went to school there, and worked there for some time, actually as an engineer, and then left that because I was just being part of the extractive and destructive industry that was destroying the one thing that I actually cared about. So left that, wanted to do work in conservation and, you know, raising awareness about nature. And my work, you know, has mostly been on Trinidad and Tobago. I did live on Tobago for about a year, and since then just back on Trinidad, and that's where I'm based in the Caribbean. But, you know, my photography has taken me into various places, and it's always been using ecotourism as a tool for conservation.
Your photographs are absolutely beautiful. Now, I'm not an appreciator of art. I don't know stuff, but I know that when I look at your photographs, I'm seeing something really special. How did you get so involved in photography and finding your own take? Because, you know, people take photographs, but you elevate it somehow. So tell me a little bit about your ethos behind your photography.
Well, a side note, my name Faraz actually means elevated. So it's funny that you use that word. But yeah, it's from early on, my grandfather used to have the National Geographic magazine subscription. On the back side of all of the National Geographic magazines, there was a section called Wildlife as Canon Sees It. There'd always be a photograph and a little bit of information on the animal. It's usually an endangered species. What are the threats it faces, and what can be done to save the species. And I always used to go for that. So I think I was always drawn to photography, and I would see the beauty all the time, wherever I looked. And I would see the frame. So I did want to take photographs for a very long time before I actually started. It's long after I was working and making my own money and all of that. Honestly, I kind of forgot about the desire to be in nature. But when I was working as an engineer, I hated my job so much that every weekend I'd try to get as far away from it as possible. So I just find myself in these far-flung areas of the island, and it was all just beauty. It was everywhere. So I eventually got a camera and started to take pictures, and then started to photograph the lizards, the birds, anything really. Wildlife was my thing. And then I really started to do some research. Eventually I photographed a bird that I didn't know. I'm like, what is this thing? Let me see what birds are in Trinidad and Tobago. And there was such an extensive list. I said, no, wait, all of these birds are around here? This is unbelievable. So that really started more of a curiosity. And, eventually over the years, I kind of created my own aesthetic. Because I learned a lot of photography theory via reading a blog from a photographer called Arthur Morris. He's based in the US, and I did go to one of his workshops in 2013. And I learned a lot about, the exposure theory and all of that. The really, like the nuts and bolts of photography, of bird photography, of wildlife photography, I learned there. So, as we say, you learn the rules like a pro, and then you break them like an artist. So I had to go through that and then, see what I wanted to depict. And that answer was that I wanted to depict the beauty and the purity, as I mentioned, and bring that to people, to bring that to a wider audience so that people could feel something. So it's not really that, it's a color, it's not really the composition, it's not really, what is in the frame, but it's the feel. And that is it, because when I go in a wild space, I feel. I feel in a human space as well, but it doesn't always feel great.
Yes.
So yeah, that's what I try to do. And I think as artists, you do have to look at other people's work and learn from them. But then it comes a time where you have to look inside and see what is there, and then you find your way.
Yeah. You share your photos on Instagram and write about what you're sharing. And what you write about, it's not like a description. You do put that in there, but you always talk about what it evokes, the emotion.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever I look at them and read your descriptions, I just feel like I'm just taking that moment back and just, appreciating. But you wrote a book, didn't you, of all the birds in Trinidad and Tobago?
I did do species accounts for about 175 of them. It's really meant to be an introduction to bridge the gap between the pamphlet of here are some birds that can be found in your backyard, and then the field guide, which is almost 500 species. So I found there was a great disparity in between the two, and I wanted there to be some kind of mid-range, to be an easy introduction. And of course, the pamphlets and the field guide, they're all illustrations. So I wanted the photographs to be there so that, and my style of photography also includes a lot of the habitat. And the habitat is so important for us as birders to even figure out where the birds are.
Yeah.
Because if I can look at a photo of a bird like a masked yellowthroat, for example, which is one of the resident warblers that we have, and I see that it's in a grassy area, and it's not at the top of the grass, it's in the middle of the grass, then I know where to look for it when I go to look for it.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit more context.
Yeah, that because often guidebooks, if they have a photograph, they'll have a photograph of the bird, but it's just the bird,
Yeah.
nothing else. Yeah, exactly. The context is so important.
Yeah, definitely.
And that book's still available. I'll put the link in the
Yes.
in the episode notes if people
Yes.
are interested in having a look. But you also do guiding. So you've got into bird guiding. I know that you do guiding in Trinidad and Tobago, and that you've produced quite a few sort of online seminars about Trinidad and Tobago, and that they're still available on
They are on YouTube, yeah.
so people can see what Trinidad and Tobago are like if they've never been there, and have it as one of their dream destinations. It's on my list,
Yeah.
I know. You do guiding, and we had a chat about your guiding the other day, because I was saying I have very specific requirements when it comes to a bird guide. I'm very fussy, and mainly because I have a style of birding that doesn't always vibe with how it might be if you were on a guided trip.
Absolutely.
I like to take things slow. I mean, I like to see the number of birds, but I'm not terribly disappointed if I don't see everything that could be seen. And sometimes when you're out with a guide, you know, they want to show you because they rely on reviews from people. So if they've not shown you everything and you're a sort of person that wants to see everything, you know, maybe you won't leave a good review, and that impacts their livelihood. So I do understand from guides' point of view that, you know, they want to show you as much as they can. But at the same time, I've been lucky that when I've been either on groups or we've been on what we thought was going to be a group, but it's turned out to be just me and my husband, we've been able to say to the guide, look, we understand we're not going to see everything. Don't worry that we're not going to see everything. Obviously, show us as much as you can, but I want to have time to look at the birds. I want to have time to watch the interactions. I don't want to just have tick, 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 because that's not satisfying to me at all, you know? And I was talking to you about it, and you had some similar... I mean, you have had to deal with people that want to tick, tick, tick.
Absolutely. I mean, honestly, I avoid people who want to just go tick, 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 you know, because it's quality over quantity for me, right? And I think as a species, when we started to count, that's when we started to go astray. So before the time when we could have counted, and we knew what was 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We knew what was I don't have and I have. I know what when I'm hungry, and I know when I've had enough. You know, so it's a very basic primal thing. You know, if you go deep inside, and it's the same thing with birding, in that, and a lot of guides fall victim to that because people are so focused on the numbers. You know, who's the top e-birder in the country? How many species have you seen? We did birding for 3 weeks in this country, and we saw X amount of species, and we talked to each other about that. The numbers always bring about a ranking. You could never rank something that cannot be quantified, right? And to me, that's the problem. So for me personally, how I do my trips and how I do birding is that we just put ourselves in the position. We know where something may be, and we see if we see it, right? And sometimes we see things, sometimes we don't. We move on, and then we check somewhere else. And for example, when you're birding in tropical forests, you rely heavily on mixed species flocks, right? So sometimes you'd be walking through the forest and you wouldn't hear anything, you wouldn't see a thing. Either you keep on walking or you stay in place. And sometimes you come upon a mixed species flock and you see too many things. It's like it's too many birds, and you have to ID them immediately before they go.
Yeah.
Right? And it's always that too, like, do I stay? Do I go? I like to find a tree that has fruits or flowers, a tree that I've seen maybe some birds feeding on before, and just wait. And then when you wait, you slow down, you start to notice other things, right? You start to notice other animals around, maybe some insects, or sometimes it's just a cloud in the sky that's floating across. It's so, beautiful. One thing that we do when we go into nature, automatically we lower our voices, right? I got invited to a dinner last night and everyone was shouting. And I found myself, it's been so long since I've been in a situation like that I found I just shut up. Because why do I have to shout to speak to someone who's next to me? And when we go birding, we're all quiet.
Yeah.
Naturally, yeah. So, yeah, for me, it's really important to do that. To slow down, to see what's around, to listen to what's around. And I always say, casual birding is all about listening to birds as opposed to listening for birds. Because if you listen for birds, you're already wanting. You're already in that kind of predatory mindset. What is there? I come for this and I'm listening for that. But then you miss something else, and it could be an alternate call of a bird that you've never heard before. It could be a call that you've always heard, but it may have a couple notes at the end, and you think, this is beautiful. Yeah, and it gives meaning to life in that sense. So nature always gives you what you need, not necessarily what you want.
And you don't always know that, do you?
And you don't know that. So so you throw away all the expectations and just go.
Actually, sorry, it did remind me just then, of course, your book is called Casual Birding in Trinidad and Tobago. I totally forgot.
Oh, it's fine.
How could I forget?
Oh, we're always talking casual. So
exactly,
it'll come up invariably.
Yeah, no, as soon as you said that, that was the name. I just think of it as Faraz's book,
Yeah.
Sorry.
Well, it is that as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
So you guide in Trinidad and Tobago, but you've now stretched out to some other areas. So tell me a little bit about that.
Right. So immediately close to Trinidad and Tobago, of course, it's in the Caribbean, right? So I've partnered with a company called Birding the Islands, and I do trips in the Caribbean as well. So the Lesser Antilles, and we're island people. And we're all about doing things locally, right? So it's a guy based in Barbados, and every island we go to, we have this local guide, and it's always about showing people that we can conserve the areas, we can protect the birds, and we can make some money as well. Because in the Caribbean, a lot of the species are slowly disappearing, silently disappearing, because we've kind of eaten the story about the resorts, the sun, sea and sand model, the vacationing home, where it's just like, well, here are people that come from the global north, and it's just a place for certain people to come and sit on a beach and then have someone serve them a margarita, right? But there's so much more to it. So that's a kind of a deeper view of why we started to do the Caribbean trips. With that company, they also sent me to the Solomon Islands recently. So we're kind of like island based, but also I do trips to Guyana and Suriname in northern South America, as well as East Africa. So we just came back before Solomon Islands. We did 3 weeks in Kenya. I just posted one of the pictures. I only converted 3 pictures out of all of the ones that I took in Kenya. So I just posted one on Instagram this morning, one of Kilimanjaro. And it was at sunset, and it's just, the top is pink because of the light. And it was just, I'm so lucky to be able to see these things and these places. It's all follows the same ethos, just go into space and enjoy what happens.
Yeah, it sounds absolutely amazing. And I know, when we come your way, you are the person I want to take us around.
I would love it.
I'd love to share birding with you. I just think it would just be beautiful for the soul. It would just be, really wonderful.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, I've been asking all my guests here at Global Bird Fair, if you had a chance to spend your day anywhere, so a fantasy birding day, so this is your day, you can instantly be transported to somewhere in the world at any time. So it might be that it was a different time, hundreds of years ago or whatever. Mm-hmm. You're going to say dinosaurs, aren't you?
I was thinking about it.
But what would be your fantasy birding day?
I would say I would like to see breeding shorebirds in their breeding grounds in the Arctic, whichever species, because I love shorebirds. As a family, I think they're so interesting, they're so remarkable, they're tiny little birds, they travel such great distances, their habitat choice is so specific, it can't be too wet, it can't be too dry, it can't be too soft, it can't be too hard. Just this sliver of habitat from pole to pole. It boggles my mind how they live. To me, that they are truly global citizens, They're also, so connected to the cosmos, the magnetic field of the earth, things that we cannot see or perceive or even think of perceiving. Yeah, so they live, although they live on the same planet as we do, they, I think, also live on a different planet. So I've seen many shorebird species on their wintering grounds in the tropics, but I think to see them breeding would be fantastic. That would be my fantasy.
Well, that's it. You can have that.
All right, let's go.
Thank you so much for spending time with us. I've really enjoyed speaking with you, and it's so wonderful to see you in person, like not on a Zoom screen.
Yeah, thank you for having me, and it is wonderful to see you as well.
Aww.
And to have this conversation and to be here and to share a space.
I really hope that it's not too far into the future that we're actually out birding together.
I'm sure it'll happen. Wherever it is, if it's here, if it's in Trinidad and Tobago, if it's in the Caribbean, in Africa, wherever. Yeah, it'll happen.
We will do it.
Yes.
Thank you so much for joining me, Faraaz.
Thank you for having me, Susie.
You can find the link to my previous conversation with Faraaz in episode 98 in the episode notes. You'll also find links to Faraaz's website and to his book, Casual Birding in Trinidad and Tobago. Don't forget, I love to hear about your birding experiences. Do share them with me. You can contact me on my website, casualbirder.com. Check out the episode notes to also find links that give you more information about the Casual Birder Bird Club, which is an online club that meets every month. And if meeting up with a group of friendly people from around the world to talk about the birds you've been seeing sounds like something you'd like to do, you'd be very welcome to join us. So why not sign up and join us for our next meeting? My thanks to Randy Braun for designing the artwork for the show. The theme music is Short Sleeve Shirt by the Drones. Thanks to them for letting me use it. Check out their website at dronesmusic.net. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you'll join me again for another episode of the Casual Birder podcast.